Welcome to Good Game, the show for gamers by gamers. I'm Hex.
And I'm Bajo. Lots of good value gaming this week, Hex, including the open world zombie survival of State of Decay.
There's been a lot of brain eating this year, hasn't there?
Yes, well, zombies have to eat too, Hex. It's a circle of life.
We'll also be stepping back into the shadows with Shadowrun Returns.
Plus, Halo goes twin sticks with Spartan Assault, and Dave Callan hurties his brain explaining the complicated lore of Snake from Metal Gear.
But before all that, can you guess the game for this week?
What you got there? What's that?
It's the news. Oh! He doesn't read it off that, though. He reads it off the thing.
Good game.
Saints Row 4's refused classification status has been upheld after it was submitted to the Classification Review Board. The review board considered the previous classification based on an unaltered version of the game. However, the board unanimously determined that due to drug use relating to incentives and rewards, it was unable to be accommodated within the R18+ rating. However, an optional mission involving alien narcotics was removed, and the modified version has received an MA15+ classification.
So you agree you have a problem?
Nope, you do. You're the communications director. Fix this.
Microsoft has revealed yet another policy change, confirming that independent developers will be able to self-publish games on Xbox Live, and that any Xbox One can be used as a development kit. Microsoft had previously required developers to work with a publisher in order to release games on the platform, while both Nintendo and Sony had allowed developers to self-publish on their networks. The previous requirement had led to several upcoming independent games publicly shunning Xbox Live, such as Jonathan Blow's The Witness and Polytron's Fez 2. In more Fez 2 news, the game has been cancelled and its creator is leaving the games industry. No specific reason for the sudden departure was given. However, the game's developer, Phil Fish, wrote on social media saying, "I effing hate this industry." Shortly after, he then posted on the game's official site writing, "Fez 2 is cancelled. I'm done. This isn't the result of any one thing, but the end of a long, bloody campaign. You win."
The latest in the Halo mega franchise is Spartan Assault. It's a pretty straightforward top-down twin-stick shooter for Windows 8, Windows 8 phones and tablets.
It's your usual fare. You have your classic 2-weapon loadout, recharging shields, different grenades, armor abilities, vehicles, and melee attacks at your disposal. And it nails the sound and visuals, so it will feel very familiar to fans.
Yes, but there are a few tweaks to the old formula. There's no reloading, you just keep on shooting till your ammo runs out, and you can carry up to 18 grenades at once. You can melee attack, but it takes ages to actually hit anyone, so it's a bit useless.
There are 25 missions that won't take more than 4 or 5 minutes each to clear. But before you dive into them, you're given a chance to customize your loadout from a choice of a few different weapons, armor abilities, and boosters.
But out of the 3 extra options you get to choose from, you have to spend real-life money to get 2 of them. And they only last for that one mission.
Yeah, I don't like one-time use transactions in general, but especially for a game that I've already purchased. Just rubs me the wrong way, Hex. And strangely, we couldn't actually connect to the store to purchase them. We tried for days, but we just couldn't connect, so we don't really know if they're worth it or not.
Yeah, and you don't need them, but it seems a bit greedy to lock away the best items like that. You can also apply 2 skulls before each mission, which act as modifiers, making it so enemies are tougher or you have to melee enemies to recharge your shields.
And they'll give you a bit of a boost to the XP gain in each mission, as well as add a bit of extra challenge if you want to go back and replay levels. And some of the XP that you earn carries over into your Halo 4 campaign.
Also, at the end of each mission, you're given a score and a star rating. Getting multi-kills and playing well gets you more points, and getting a gold star can be pretty tricky, so it's a good little game to bust out at a bus stop to try and set a high score with.
There is a story too.
The fighting started when a splinter sect of Covenant ignored the ceasefire of 2552.
The game takes place during the first major attack from the Covenant, after the truce was struck at the end of Halo 3, following the efforts of Spartan Sarah Palmer, who fans will recognize from Halo 4.
Spartans Davis and Palmer were both stationed on Dratheus 5's moon at the time of the first attack.
There are a handful of nicely animated motion comics that tell you a little bit more about what happened during the battle, but it's pretty minimal.
Outmanned? Outgunned? Spartan Palmer didn't see it as a problem. How about you?
There isn't really any dialogue or character development though, so those hoping for some epic Halo story better check those hopes at the door.
It is a bit weird that this isn't on Xbox at all. That's where Halo's home is. Do you think fans will be up in arms about this?
I don't know about up in arms, but it does seem like a bit of a ploy to boost sales of Windows 8 and Surface tablets. What I found really strange though is that it's a twin stick shooter, and yet none of the platforms they've released it on have proper twin sticks. I mean, sure, there are virtual sticks on mobile, and they claim to be adding controller support to the PC version, but really that should have been there from the beginning.
Yeah, it is an odd one. Final thoughts, Hex?
It's a decent shooter, even though it feels like a mobile game. I still had a lot of fun with it. I'm giving it 7.
I don't think Halo fans are going to be missing out on too much if they don't play this game. I think it's all right. I'm giving it 6.5.
While being at the university and doing some laser work in the basement lab, myself and a couple of my friends and my brother, we already started making games. It was board game and then another board game, and then we started making these amateurish, not very nice looking games, which were smart. So I never got any job. Being the CEO of wargaming is pretty much all my life. This is the most beautiful job on the planet. You know, you make games, you are a gamer yourself, you enjoy playing games, other people's games. Now we are in a position to enjoy our own games, and you get paid, and you generate revenue and pay your bills with that.
We've hit them hard. Good game.
Shadowrun holds a lot of nostalgia with gamers, from tabletop to 16-bit, and the SNES game was particularly good. It threw orcs and elves and dwarves into a Blade Runner cyberpunk world. For its time, it had a unique dynamic action RPG flavor to it. The music was also very memorable. Now it's time to run on the fringe of society once more with the much anticipated crowd-funded sequel, Shadowrun Returns.
Your friend Sam Watts is dead, but he still manages to send you a message and a job. There's a villain on the loose known as the Ripper, who is surgically removing body parts from victims. It's a good setup, but really only worth it if you take the time to read all the dialogue. And the writing is quite good, isn't it, Bajo?
Yeah, it is. And you're right, you really do need to pay attention because it's such a deep story filled with interesting characters. I didn't actually think I would get into the story so much, and in fairness, there are a few sections which are a bit convoluted and made me go the skip, but there was more than enough story here to pull me along. This game does assume that you've played games like it before though. Even coming from similar games such as XCOM, players will still struggle with the awkward interface and lack of an intuitive in-game tutorial.
Yeah, there are just a few simple things in menus that continuously halt the experience. Clicking through dialogue or trying to work out how to load a previous save, for example. I mean, there's so much room on the screen, there's no reason to have to go into all those fiddly sub-menus.
Yeah, some more shortcuts would have been nice, but the good news is, this game is really fun once you're past all that. After you start exploring new abilities, recruiting runners to go on missions with you, and learning how the combat works, the game opens up much more. And then you start to really enjoy the fights and appreciate how they complement the narrative.
I think my favourite part of this game is just the variety of classes and even the ability to kind of craft your own hybrid and experiment with that. And how you craft your character can help you out in certain dialogue choices and tactical situations. If I was being greedy, I'd say I wish there was even more of that sort of stuff in the game.
Yeah, me too. I did enjoy summoning the crazy elementals during battle, such as this guy, who's got a face for a butt. It's a bit hard to see from this angle, but it's definitely there. And there's plenty of strategies to employ with all of the various abilities, and I think there's a lot there for gamers to get into. The art in this game is beautiful, to the point where I want to print out screenshots and stick them up next to my computer on the wall. But a lot of it is so wasted. There's so many alleys you can't go down and stuff you can't interact with, so it's kind of like they've got a 2D piece of art and then just drawn a line of game design through it.
Yeah, but this is a small downloadable game, and I think they've nailed that Blade Runner vibe perfectly. I liked how it transitions from action to RPG as you move around the levels. There's plenty of ambushes to keep you on your toes. Sometimes they can go horribly wrong though. You can also use enemies against each other, which mixes up the fights a bit too.
I think the class you pick or the class you craft is really important to how much fun you have in this game. I didn't have much fun with my mage. I found the mage really squishy, and often I'd get ambushed and killed straight away, losing heaps of progress. I thought the effects were a bit lame for the mage as well, just a few tiny sparkles and explosions, and I just wanted all of the combat to look more spectacular. I do feel like I'm being a bit negative on this game, and I do like that the stakes are quite high, that there is a fair punishment for death, but really the best is yet to come with Shadowrun Returns.
Yes, the game comes with its own level editor, which means there's already a whole bunch of user-generated content. The nostalgia associated with this franchise means that we'll likely see some great stuff come out of the community. I mean, already I see someone is remaking the SNES version.
I found it easy in the end to forgive most of this game's flaws for some decent turn-based combat. I had such a warm feeling playing this game because it's a narrative-driven turn-based RPG, and I feel like that's a lost genre that isn't shown enough love anymore. I feel like games like this never quite have enough of a budget or production values to both be accessible to everyone, but also deep enough to satisfy fans of the genre. There just aren't enough games out there like this, and certainly none that have a story as good as this one. But at the end of the day, Hex, I just was so frustrated by that interface and a few little bugs I encountered that I just didn't have a good time with this game, and I really wanted to, but I didn't, so I'm gonna give this 6.5 out of 10 rubber chickens.
Personally, I really liked how you need to really make use of your team to get the job done. You know, buffing each other, watching each other's backs, and those on-the-fly strategies that present themselves are just really fun to experiment with. I think this mesh of lore is really hard to get right, but you can tell they've thought about it. There is a lot of love in this game, so I think it's worth a 7.5.
And now it's time for a lesson in lore with Dave.
Well, hello there and welcome. Please make yourself comfortable. I tend to go on a bit. Not in a bad way, more in a Metal Gear Solid cutscene kind of a way.
Looks like the tanker's theirs now. K-60 Kasatka.
I'm okay. I just twisted my ankle a little bit trying to get away.
Well, if that's all, it's nothing to worry about. It's imitation, isn't it?
Yeah. It's a Chinese Type 17 pistol.
If you're thinking the Metal Gear Solid games are a convoluted, confusing mess of conspiracies and secret organizations, guess what? You'd be right. It's like a cross between Splinter Cell and that weird part of the Tube of You.
You okay? Stomach pains? Diarrhea?
But let's talk about Snake. Did you know that the entire time you've been playing Metal Gear Solid games, you've been playing nothing more than a clone? That's right, you're not even OG. For a start, Solid Snake's real name is David, an excellent name for a hero. He has an IQ of 180 and he was born in 1972 as part of a project to create the ultimate soldier from the genes of a legendary warrior named Big Boss, who appears to have been named after the first ever Bruce Lee film.
This time you're eating paper. Next time it's gonna be glass.
Good thing he wasn't named after the first ever Jackie Chan film, Big and Little Wong's Tin Bar. Fact check that it's true. The fact he was created as a clone is the reason why he began aging so rapidly by Metal Gear Solid 4. Well, that and the experimental fox dye virus he got injected with right in the vein didn't help. Neither did all the crappy dehydrated rations he eats, I imagine.
What happened to your face?
Big Boss, who not too surprisingly looked very similar to his clone son, was a masterful military leader who created the US military's Foxhound unit in the first place. His real name was John, not a good name for a hero, but he also had a snake code name. Naked Snake. Wait a second. What other types of snake are there? Snakes are only ever naked. When do you see a snake in a waistcoat and a top hat?
I don't know you well enough to trust you.
How well do you have to know me to trust me?
This was the character you played in Metal Gear Solid 3, Snake Eater, which was set in 1964, 8 years before Solid Snake was created.
Snake, huh? Well, I'm Eva. Are you here to tempt me?
Seriously though, what's with all the snake innuendo? You got Snake Eater, Solid Snake. How long before they introduce a character called Trouser Snake?
The world would be better off without snakes.
Anyway, I'd like to thank the Metal Gear cutscenes on a personal note for helping me to get all the ironing done. Thanks, Hideo.
Thanks, Dave. State of Decay was refused classification here in Australia a couple of months back for its inclusion of self-medicated real-world drugs such as morphine and methadone.
But they've since been snipped and replaced with more acceptable drugs like caffeine and aspirin, so Aussies now have the all clear to try and survive this open-world zombie apocalypse.
Psycho's trying to bite me. Guess we're not the only ones having a bad day.
We can't just stay out here in the open. Sorry.
Hex, I'm so glad we finally get to play this game. State of Decay was made with a tiny budget, so it has a lot of rough edges, especially in the visuals department, which may be a deal breaker for some. But interestingly, it also holds the record for being the fastest selling original game on Xbox Live Arcade. So that says something for it. For every technical shortcoming, this game gives you a dozen memorable moments in return. Hex, this reminded me of Grand Theft Auto 3 a bit because the gameplay is so rich that you end up forgiving its flaws and finding them more endearing than frustrating.
I think it took me a little bit longer to warm to this than you, especially after I'd been spoiled by the expert storytelling in The Last of Us. You know, there really is only the most basic of plot lines at play here. The game opens with you fighting zombies, and during combat you learn that the undead have taken over while you were on a canoeing trip.
What the hell, man? We're gone 2 weeks and what? Everybody takes up cannibalism?
Beats me.
I like that about this though, you're just thrown right into the deep end and forced to survive, which is the main theme of the game.
Yeah, I get that, but the cutscenes are just so bad.
I'd be more than happy to nail you to a tree and use you as bait.
All right then. Let's get to work.
I mean, often it feels like they just picked a camera angle at random and went with it. I ended up playing director myself and rotating the camera around just to liven the shots up a little.
Hey, what's going on?
But, you know, now I've aired my gripes about the story, let's get to the good stuff, the gameplay.
Yes, zombies are everywhere. And instead of being an over-muscled one-man army, you switch control between a handful of average Joes struggling to survive. At the start, you've got nothing but a stick to defend yourself with, and it's quite a ways into the game before you find any serious weaponry.
Yes, and because you're so underpowered, the game is more about zombie avoidance than zombie combat. Taking a lone zombie out is no problem, but if you let yourself get surrounded, you'll be overwhelmed quickly. Damn it. And to make things even harder, these guys run just as fast as you do, which makes for some terrifying chases. Like here, when I was running for my life with a horde of zombies behind me. I mean, I knew I'd have no chance if I turned and fought, but at the same time, my stamina was running out, making me run slower and slower until... dead.
Yeah, those moments are pretty tough. I liked it when you know that you're not going to fight your way out of a situation. There is no chance, so you have to try and find a vehicle. Being in a moving car gives you more protection than any of the weapons do. With enough speed, you can take out zombies easily, especially if you open the door for them.
Hey.
But if you're going more slowly than the zombies, they will grab onto the car. If they're on the driver's side, you can try and shake them loose. But if they're on the passenger side, you have to get a bit more creative.
You think it's bad now? You should have seen Marshall in the first couple of days.
You can tell they've thought really hard about this car combat because it hits that right point between fun and realism.
Yeah, this game just kept impressing me with practical gameplay solutions. I mean, like this building, for example, where I saw an out-of-reach ladder. Well, technically I should be able to just reach that if I jumped. Huh, and I can. I know it's a little thing, but it's just nice when devs really think about the details.
I always appreciate it when they let you enter via a window instead of a front door. I made that my trademark entrance.
Man, can anybody tell me what the hell is going on?
Let's talk about the home-based management, which I found a little confusing.
Yeah, I was really lost as well. You've got to manage the group's morale, their stocks of supplies, and loads of details down to the amount of sleeping room. And like you mentioned earlier, the game just throws you in the deep end. It didn't give me any real guidance on what I could do at base, so I just had to figure it all out by trial and error. I think I was about halfway through the game before I realized I could use the radio to call around and see if anyone had seen any of the resources I needed, which are then marked on the map for you.
Yeah, that radio becomes a game changer once you've got it figured out. You spend a good portion of the game scavenging through buildings looking for supplies.
I'll run this on.
And physically legging it back can be a long process. But if you found something essential, like a stash of ammo, you can just radio back to base and get them to send out another survivor to pick it up.
I found some supplies. Send runners for pickup.
I'll get people moving.
And you can physically see these survivors running about the map doing these pickups, and I like that there's so much happening in the background like that.
Yeah, I was on a mission where I called a survivor out, and then on my way back I saw her being attacked, so I pulled over to help her out. It's cool, man. I got your back.
I think the game is at its best when you have an AI buddy fighting by your side. Guns are a pretty scarce commodity in the game, so you won't be using them a lot, especially as your respect levels drop pretty quickly when you hit one of your own with friendly fire, which I did a fair bit. So you use melee weapons for most of your combat, and when you've got a partner, they'll often help you out by holding zombies so you can get a clean hit. I also found when I was close to my home base, I'd be preparing to club a zombie when they'd just be shot by one of my buddies in the guard tower. These are small touches, but they make such a difference.
Yeah, I was also really impressed with the way the game constantly raised the stakes in its world. Like night, for example, is really terrifying. You can barely see anything, so it's much harder to safely keep clear of groups of zombies. And one day and night cycle in-game takes a couple of hours in real time. So, you know, each time I'd reach another sunrise, I really felt like I'd survived an ordeal.
They really do a good job of that decaying world setting, don't they? There are so many nods to iconic zombie scenarios, such as when you have to pull off the road and slowly inch around wrecks. Often I notice other survivors were in trouble during their own missions, so when I switched to play them, they'd be injured or run down.
So damn tired.
It's just one of many ways the game raises the stakes and keeps them high. And of course, your weapons gradually wear out too. It really is a state of decay. Everything is falling to pieces in this world.
I do think the missions could have been a little bit more varied, but I really liked the ones where you were holed up in a house and had to fend off hordes of zombies.
Come on, we need to put up some barricades.
It was just that frantic mix of boarding up the windows, sniping them as they approached, and brawling with the ones that got inside. I mean, sure, there was some dodgy clipping, but I was having so much fun that I didn't mind. Then I got so low on ammo that I had to run outside and use a car to finish the job. But we should wrap this up, Badge. Final thoughts?
This is a rough game. The glitches did frustrate me at times, such as here when I was driving along and I triggered a cutscene so it teleported my character out of his car to have a conversation.
I'm gonna have to ask you to move along.
While the car just kept rolling along in the background.
Listen, man, we need some help here.
But these small issues are nothing compared to the thrill of finding a rare weapon.
Scratch that off the wish list.
Or taking out one of the huge zombies.
Whew, those guys were tough. But yeah, I have to say I wasn't expecting this much game from a download like this. State of Decay is kind of like one of its zombies. It's not that pretty to look at, but it'll sink its teeth into you and get the job done. So I'm giving it 8.5 out of 10 rubber chickens.
It's so much fun, and it's impossible not to think what this game would have been like with some multiplayer, which they dropped early in development due to practical reasons. What I like most about this game, though, it's about managing people and resources, and I think we haven't seen the last of State of Decay as a franchise, so I'm going to give it 8 out of 10 rubber chickens.
Good game. How did you guess the game for this week?
That's not what Master Chief sounds like.
No, it's not.
It was Strike Fleet Omega from only last year. Released for mobile devices, it was a hybrid RTS meets tower defense space simulator. You played as an admiral defending the last remnants of humanity from the Hive Queen. And it was developed by Harebrained Schemes, the very same developers behind this week's Shadowrun Returns.
Next week, we get to play the villain in Payday 2.
And it's been a long 8-year wait, but we finally have a new Pikmin to look at.
And over on Spawn Point on ABC3 this weekend, we have a look at a locally developed game, Towncraft.
Until next time, may all your games be good ones. Hex out.
Bajo out. Hex, you haven't said anything about my haircut.
I did. When you first got it, I said it makes you look very clean cut, like you're going to join the army. I can't imagine you in the army, actually.
I would be the worst army dude.
My vision of you was going through that tire thing and falling over.
I get through the first tire and just have a sleep.